Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hack Summit. We're here with Benny Giang, one of the co-founders of Cryptokitties. And Benny, thanks for enduring with all the technical hardships here. We really appreciate your patience. We feel very lucky to have you here to learn all about Cryptokitties and your vision for the blockchain in the future. So thanks for being here, Benny.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ed, for inviting me to this conference. It's super exciting to have all of these amazing speakers, and I'd love to kind of talk a little bit more about cats and the blockchain and how that's kind of exploded in the last couple of months.
Sounds great. So if you have a presentation, feel free to enable it and present. The audience will be here, and I'll be listening the whole time. You can ask questions of the audience as well.
Okay.
I can ask those on your behalf. So take it away.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, you look great.
Great. So I put together a brief presentation today. It's on the topic of kind of what does it look like to have the first billion consumers to come to the blockchain? And for those who are kind of new to Cryptokitties, this is your first time hearing about it, I will kind of go through that very briefly. I've done many presentations at different conferences throughout, basically in Asia and Europe. And so Cryptokitties has been a very interesting topic that a lot of people want to know more about. But today I really wanted to focus on 6 quick topics of, what are we currently thinking about as a team and what's been really interesting in terms of development in the blockchain space. So a great summary of what Cryptokitties is, it's a collectible, breedable, and adorable cat on the blockchain. Cryptokitties is the world's first and the biggest blockchain game. And for the people who are new to this, essentially it's like Neopets, or Tamagotchi on the blockchain. And we have super cute cats, as you see here. We have the Draco, who's the dragon cat, and Twitch, who is our mascot. To date, there's about 820,000 cats now in the game. And the cool thing about these cats is that they have genetics. So just like humans have dominant and recessive traits, and when you get married and you have kids, maybe your child will have your grandfather's traits. It's the same thing here. We actually spent a couple of months running genetic simulations, so then we could get to about 4 billion variations in the genes. So the really cool thing is that with blockchain, you'll be able to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. You get to own it because you have it in your own wallet. The cool thing for Cryptokitties is it's the first time ever where you could really own a cat, a digital cat. And these digital cats, of course, they're breedable, they're collectible, and we have on the website, www.cryptokitties.co, you could actually look at them and purchase them with Ether. So who am I? Well, my name is Benny. I'm one of the co-founders of Cryptokitties. I mainly focus on Asia partnerships and community evangelism. We're launching in China, actually. Very shortly, at the end of this month, I'll be going to Hong Kong, and we're speaking at China Joy in Shanghai, so it's super exciting. That's my information there. You have my Twitter handle, WeChat, and also email if you ever have questions. And like I said, this is going to be a fairly short presentation with 20 slides. Usually there's about 60, so I wanted to keep it very brief. So let's start off with a very big topic. Even for me, as our team kind of started getting more involved in the blockchain space, I constantly ask myself, why blockchain, right? Why is it important? And I think it's very important that all of us kind of have this question all the time, right? Beyond making money and buying Lambos and all the other things that are sometimes typically associated with crypto and the blockchain, I encourage other people to kind of dig deeper into why is this technology interesting and why is it impactful. So let's start off with a very easy breakdown. In my opinion, it's the easiest breakdown of why the blockchain is important. So let's start off with the internet. With the invention of the internet, what benefits has it provided? Well, it connected humans around the world for easier communication. Just like us right now, there's like 16,000 people all over the world dialing in, listening to this presentation. That was only accessible with the invention of the internet. And it allowed us humans to kind of connect to services that improve our lives. So whether that's Uber or Airbnb or Flipkart or Amazon, it really allowed us to kind of connect to services that get us from point A to point B, or the things that we purchase from point A to point B. Now let's think about what the blockchain brings, right? It allowed connected humans, which is us using the internet, to collaborate more in mass. It allowed us as connected humans to make decisions more easily. And the reason why I put this up there is because if you look at Ethereum or Bitcoin or any of the blockchain products that are out there or protocols, you'll see that there is no boundaries of borders where people live in a specific country, own Ethereum, or control the protocol. You'll see that it's a global initiative where people from all over the world can participate. And not only that, a big phenomenon with Ethereum offering smart contracts, it allowed for a lot of people to raise funds in areas that are not in Silicon Valley. And so it really allowed us to kind of collaborate and raise money and build really cool things. So when you combine these two worlds together, you really have this interesting cross-section. The combination of the internet and the blockchain, I really do believe that you get human creativity that now can exist digitally. Now you may be asking, since the LimeWire days and the Kazaa, people have been accessing digital assets or digital items, since the beginning of the internet. Well, when I say it can exist digitally, I mean the objects that you purchase or own, whether it's a token right now or a Cryptokitty, you can own it, and it's an actual digital asset that previously with the internet, you would need a third party to verify, or it would be on someone's server. So let's kind of start off with the 6 topics I'm here to discuss with you. Some of them are more philosophical, so you may have to kind of reach out a little bit further. And then some of them are more actionable with some of the challenges that we see with the Cryptokitties team. So one of the first things that I've been thinking about quite a lot is this concept of a ghost hunt. And like it says there, ghosts are kind of spiritual energy. Maybe it's of an animal or a significant person. And there seems to be a belief that, there's haunted houses or there's places where this apparition or ghost will continue to live even after they have passed on. And so the reason why I bring this on is because if you think about it, the digital world where we have all of our devices, whether it's an Apple Watch, a HomePod, or an iPhone, all of these devices allow you to interact with these digital services, right? Whether that's ordering an Uber with your watch or talking to your HomePod to buy toilet paper for your house. What this does is you'll see that Apple kind of moved their metrics from increasing users to the number of devices users can own, and that's kind of their KPI. And so what I'm trying to say is that just like how we believe that there's a physical world and there's a spiritual world for ghosts, I really do think that the digital world, in the sense that all of the technology, all of the software, now even all of the assets that you create in the digital world, you will be soon be able to interact with it with the devices that you own, and it's listed there. So the best way to think about it is kind of this converging, and if you watch Ready Player One or Oasis, it's kind of touching at that concept of these digital worlds converging with the physical one. With Snapchat kind of placing these sculptures in Central Park with the collaboration of famous artists, you really start to see that now you could have a digital sculpture that is placed on a specific location where you have to actually travel there to see this object. And so this kind of overlay of digital and physical worlds it's more of a similar concept if we think that a ghost is right here with us. Maybe a CryptoKitty is sitting here, and I can only see it with my phone using AR technology. And so what the blockchain does is allow for this digital world to exist. So that's the first point, is this concept of a ghost hunt. Now I want to talk about the current state of blockchain games. Blockchain games is kind of starting to snowball and get bigger and bigger. I was at GDC this year in San Francisco. It's one of the largest gaming conferences. And I was quite surprised by seeing some of the booths there that were blockchain focused, whether it's around items or it's around a blockchain game itself. But I think I've compressed it into 5 kind of tiers, and this is kind of the current state of blockchain games. You'll notice that the dots are, representing where most of the mindset is at currently. So starting with the first tier, you get no DLT. So what is DLT? Distributed ledger technology. So you get games that are not on the blockchain. So Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, all of these popular games that you play, they don't have any component of a ledger or a blockchain. When we start to move to the second tier, we start to explore this concept of a secondary market. Now, for the longest time since Diablo 2, the auction house, or the World of Warcraft gold mining, there has always been a secondary market for people to purchase these items, and same goes for CSGO skins. So we first saw the rise of this technology through people who want to stake your centralized item to a crypto token. So how does that work? Well, let's say you play a lot of games, you have a lot of items in there, and you want to sell this gold-plated AK-7, 47 skin. So you could either go to eBay or one of these other sites and trust that this service is going to escrow your item and someone will pay you and you will send the item, right? But there are people who get scammed quite a lot, and there's a lot of issues coming around the secondary market. So it was quite a direct point from going to trust a third party to using a token that will represent your golden AK-47, and then you basically swap the tokens and the currency, and then everyone will be happy. So you could use a smart contract for that. The third tier is replacing virtual coins. So I think everyone's familiar with this. Every game since 1970s had the concept of a virtual currency or a virtual economy. And you'll see that a lot of companies that are popping up now are aiming to replace the Pokemon Go token or the Clash of Clans token with a crypto token. Now you may be asking, what is the benefit of that? It's practically the same thing. Well, one benefit of that is that you could withdraw that token. So if you have a Pokemon Go token, it will forever remain in that game and you can't, I guess, cash out, right? But you'll see that a lot of these companies or gaming companies are going down this route where they want to create their own virtual or their own crypto currency. You see platforms here as well that are kind of stating, hey, ICO your game or have an initial item offering. It's kind of in the same lines of replacing the economics of your game. Now we start to get into territories where there's not a lot of people around the world thinking about, and it's starting to get very interesting about digital assets and ownership. We have this concept of fungible items. So the best way to think about fungibility is if I had $5 and you had $5, we could easily just keep trading back and forth. It doesn't matter which bill we have. So now let's apply that concept to fungible items. So we get platforms that are like Engine, where they're built on a top of Ethereum, and each of the items, like a sword, is represented by all of these different cryptocurrencies that are ERC20, and they're all fungible. So what that means is that I could easily trade this sword in the market, and I know the value of it, and a sword is $5 or 5 ether, and so it is 5 ether. The last tier, which I think is so new and so interesting, it's the most challenging one, is non-fungible items plus the history of this item recorded. So what does that mean? Well, with Cryptokitties, each one of them are different. So if you think about Bitcoin, there's about 21 million Bitcoin. They're all the same, right? Right now, we have about 820,000 cats. They're all different. So we can't easily just trade your cat with my cat. It's like the same thing of owning a house and a car. You can't easily just trade cars like that. You need to appraisal and have the value of it assessed. And when I state history there, well, imagine that you have this, you own a cat, and 500 years in the future, you look back onto the ledger and be like, someone fed this cat 200 years ago, or someone walked this cat 100 years ago. And you could do that by recording all of the actions onto a blockchain. And that still works if someone's running an Ethereum node. So having non-fungible items and the history recorded is definitely a challenge with scalability and a bunch of other things. But it's the most interesting, because if we believe that in the future there will be this convergence of a digital world, then what we are creating is a digital asset that will have history associated with it. So there has been kind of an interesting debate or discussion in the blockchain space around building blockchain games. One thing I wanted to touch upon here was this kind of divide of perspectives. And I think from the left side, you start to see a lot of these new games, new platforms that are coming out in the blockchain game space that are trying to solve the problem of building a blockchain game. And what does that mean by building a blockchain game? Well, you need smart contracts in the game, and you kind of need to figure out a layer 2 solution. So for Ethereum, that could be Plasma, that could be Casper. There's so many other solutions being explored. So that's kind of one camp, is basically, hey, building a blockchain game is really difficult, let us help you. The other kind of camp where we spend a lot of time in is that we believe that the tools and the partnerships that exist or don't exist in the blockchain, they're need and they're starving for a better user experience. And I could touch, I'm going to touch on this point later on. But essentially, like, a focus on user experience is so crucial at this point. The technology is amazing, but without users using it, that creates a really, really big problem. So let's talk about this concept that has been very interesting. It's called the aggregation theory. It's from a podcast called Stratechery, and it's a very interesting concept. The one-liner there on the bottom right is essentially all of the value is accrued with those who provide the best user experience. If we think about any kind of digital business or even business, there is a component of suppliers and distributors and consumers, right? A supplier could be a newspaper company, and a distributor could be the company that distributes the newspaper, and then the consumers, the people who read the newspaper. So with the rise of the internet, most of the component of supplier and distributor, since distributing content on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of these social media is free, we don't really need to focus on that. What we need to focus on is providing the best user experience. So if we look onto the left, what does that entail? Well, when you're assessing protocols or you're looking at other blockchains, you should ask yourself those 5 things, right? How is the community? How is the brand? Are there dev tools ready to be used? Is the technical offering secure? Is it valid? And how is the governance of this protocol? Those are the 5 things I look at when we get approached by a ton of other blockchains or protocols that are in the works. The other thing to kind of look at is, let's look at the tool ecosystem, right? So is the wallet in the system working? Is it agnostic, meaning that it could be used on different apps, it could be used easily onto different blockchains? What about the ease of signing for access? So essentially logging in, so you'll notice with Cryptokitties, you have this extension called MetaMask, and that is your wallet, that is a Chrome extension, but it also logs you into the game. So it acts as your access key. And mobile. So there hasn't been a lot of these things that are being built right now are for desktop. It needs to be focused on mobile. And then the last two there are tutorials and guides and a consideration for a centralized or semi-centralized user experience or user interface. So look up aggregation theory. It's a very interesting topic. The main premise of it is, whoever is able to provide the best experiences and capture the most users, they will ultimately be the winners in this space, in the decentralized app space. So this brings me to a very important point. It's a fairly new point that I've been kind of thinking about quite a lot, and it's this concept of private blockchains. Private blockchains, for the people who don't know, is essentially a blockchain, like a distributed ledger, of which that you have other companies or other approved nodes to sign these transactions and verify. Essentially, it's private. So the question that I have that's been coming up quite a lot is, we've been engaging with a lot of gaming companies and tech companies in Asia. And I could tell you that in the next 6 months or less, they will be launching a seamless blockchain experience on their private blockchains. And if you think about it, the focus of their efforts is going to be around user value and end user experience. So what they'll be offering is kind of, let's say you're using Facebook, right? You use Facebook a lot, you give your data to Facebook. Now imagine you could already see how your Facebook data could be carried across to Instagram and to WhatsApp, basically all the properties of Facebook. In Asia, it's a very similar thing, and especially in China, where the centralization of these tech companies are quite magnetic, and so they want users to go from one experience to another and buy things from their store and have that interoperability concept. And not only that, one component that they don't really mention is offering liquidity to their users. So in a way, if you use all of these tech services that the company offers, and you get this special token, maybe Facebook token, you could cash it out. You could, bring it to Binance and get the real money out. So this is something that has been evolving and brewing, and it'd be interesting to see what will happen in the next 3 to 6 months if we believe in the aggregation theory, where these companies have access to 300 million active users. With a flick of a switch, they've onboarded 300 million people, or at least to their concept of a blockchain. So what does that mean to public blockchains? So these are the 3 questions that I'm left with private blockchains. Is what does it mean for public blockchains? How will this impact aggregation theory? And is a scaling solution by 2020 too late? If these tech companies offer an experience where the users can kind of interact with a distributed ledger or have some form of a private cryptocurrency, will that be enough? And if they're satisfied with that, why would they look for a public blockchain that cannot even scale or have games that are at the MMORPG level? So these are the 3 questions. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but it'd be interesting to see what plays out. So let's talk about 5, and this is the biggest one, is the UX issues. So for those people who have been trying to actually make some transactions over the last week and a half, you'll notice that gas has just been crazy, meaning that people are spending way more money on gas. Typically for us, it's like a few cents, maybe 20, 30 cents, but quite recently the cost has risen up to quite a lot, substantially, with $1, including some of the other fees that are in the Cryptokitties game. So let me ask you that, like, if you want to play Cryptokitties, you have to make a transactions when you buy a kitty. You have to make a transaction when you breed the kitties. You have to make a transaction when you want to sell a kitty. Now imagine paying fees, very expensive fees on all of those. So I just kind of posted a tweet here. It's not the views of our team or myself, but I thought it was very interesting. And it's basically talking about what has happened recently and why the price of gas has risen at extremely high amounts. And that really serves the problem that I mentioned, is a UX problem. And we've seen that a lot of users who are playing Cryptokitties, they've kind of taken a break or taken a pause. As a gaming company or as a company, can you kind of take a pause because the protocol or this issue is going on, it's affecting your game? It's a really big issue that could balloon into many, many other things. Now, the other UX issue that we've been faced with and we've been trying to solve for the longest time is this kind of understanding the users who come to the game. So for the people who are new to Cryptokitties and you're watching this, you're joining this conference and you're watching this live stream, you may be inclined to visit Cryptokitties and check it out, right? Now, maybe you'll get interested and you're like, hey, I want to own my first CryptoKitty. It's a digital asset. It's a part of history, right? So you get interested. Now, we kind of put you through this extremely confusing, complicated process where you need to sign up, you need to buy crypto. So if you don't even know what crypto is, or you don't even know what Bitcoin or Ethereum or Ether is, well, you're gonna have to Google that. So you go to Coinbase, which is the easiest, but you could also go to an exchange and buy cryptocurrency. And then you need to download a Chrome extension like MetaMask that is essentially your wallet. So buy your Ether from Coinbase or an exchange, send it to MetaMask. Like, for most people, like moms and dads, this concept is already way beyond their scope. And not only that, you send the Ether to MetaMask, then you wait for the transaction to clear. And I don't, for most people, they don't really know what that means, and they go to Etherscan, and it looks really complicated with a lot of numbers happening. And then you finally revisit the website, and then you play the game. So as you can tell, signing up for Facebook or for Airbnb is like one click or a couple of clicks, and it's so easy. It allows for everyone, like billions of people, to sign up, no problem. But with blockchain games or decentralized apps, we're faced with this UX issue that is extremely big hurdle. And as I mentioned before, there are people who believe that building these smart contracts is really complicated. What we believe in is this problem here is extremely complicated because it involves multiple businesses, multiple tools that currently exist in the ecosystem. And a couple of months ago, this is the best user experience for any decentralized apps or blockchain games like Cryptokitties. Now, fast forward, where we are present today, this is not good enough. We need to be able to offer a better UX, user experience. So this is a fundamental issue. And you'll notice here, at every single stage of this picture here, we lose users. And it's not just us, but if you look at all the other blockchain games or decentralized app, there is a serious problem of a leaky bucket. And so as people here on this conference get excited and they go to the website, I guarantee you we're going to have so much drop off. And very, very small amount of people will actually jump through all this hurdle to play this game. Now, if you were to ask yourself, how are we going to win over the users? How are we going to onboard the first billion consumers to the blockchain? Well, here it is. This is one of the biggest problems that needs to be solved. And it may not be a single company, it may be a collaborative effort, but it's something that needs to be looked at seriously because you may figure out how to code in Solidity and build a blockchain game, but then you would have to build 5 or 10 other tools and have users adopt it in order to achieve a streamlined user experience, and that's a very difficult task. And it's one that is, impacting a lot of blockchain games built on a public blockchain. Now, these private blockchains, as I mentioned before, they won't have this problem. They will have a streamlined user experience as a normal app, and they're going to be the ones kind of educating and onboarding users on what does it mean to be on a blockchain. But for the people who know the difference between the two, it's very, very different. So, to sum up, the 5th point is the fragmentation of tools increasingly make this on-ramp to this decentralized app very, very difficult. The longer it takes, essentially, for protocols to figure out scalability, security, and a way to incentivize people to build decentralized apps and have more consumers use it, the more time we lose to other experiences that are scalable and provide a better user experience. And think about it, once 300 million people are convinced that what they are using is blockchain, whether it's private or public, and they gain the value from actually interacting with this platform, it's going to be hard to start that conversation again about, hey, maybe you should think about you should think about EOS or Ethereum or whatever, right? And it's more difficult for content creators like large gaming companies like Ubisoft or EA Games or Blizzard to even think about putting their games on a public blockchain. So the last kind of point here is I wanted to highlight the positives. So the interesting thing about Cryptokitties is this concept of extensibility. So what that means is that when you actually own something, you could do whatever you want with it, right? There are, if you buy a car, right, from a dealership, you could take the car, you could do whatever you want with the car. You could wreck the car, you could drive 100 kilometers, 100 miles per hour. It's really up to you. And in the digital world, that hasn't been really possible. So for all the games or all the things that you own digitally, if you think about it, they're all in a server of the gaming company, right? All of the rare items are in the server. Do you think that you could take an item from World of Warcraft and then, use it in another game? That concept of extensibility has never really been explored in a kind of wider scope. So for Cryptokitties, it really was a first experiment of what extensibility looks like. So for example, you could purchase a Cryptokitty and you could actually bring it into other games. So there are kitty hats, so you could decorate your kitty with hats and bow ties or whatever that you think is fancy. You could actually take the cat that you own to kitty races. There's kitty battles. All of these are not built by us. They're built by third-party developers. And there's about, I think, 32 or 34 of these experiences that are being built. Now, if you think about that, that's pretty cool because, not just a Cryptokitty, but imagine you owning an item and then you decided to take it into different apps, and the things that you do in these other games or experiences is recorded on history. So that's a concept of extensibility that has been really fascinating. It really kind of converts Cryptokitties as a game where you buy, sell, and breed kitties to something that's more full-fledged and it's very organic. So with our new recent development, and you could read more on our site, it's called the Kittyverse, and this is what we call the experiences like the moons or the planets that orbit around Cryptokitties as a game. And we've recently released this thing called the Nifty license. So the Nifty license, we've been getting this question quite a lot since the beginning of the game. Essentially, what you own as a user is the token that represents the kitty. So the DNA and all of the stuff associated with the token you own when you purchase a kitty. But the images right now are not on IPFS. So what does that mean? Well, it's not on a decentralized Dropbox. So it's still in our servers. And so a lot of people can, have all these questions about, hey, I own this kitty, I purchased this kitty. Can I print t-shirts with it? Can I make a mug with it? What can I do with it? And so the Nifty license is kind of our way of providing to the community for blockchain games and crypto collectibles, a way for a company to allow their users to use their assets in a way that doesn't, severely impact the business, and allows for these kitty verses or these other verses to show up and pop up and to prosper. Oh, sorry. I have one more slide here. So the path to 1 billion, this is the last slide, is something to consider when you're building these consumer decentralized apps. Is the way to get true adoption of the blockchain is by creating these amazing experiences. So for us, we were working with some of the best gaming companies out there and the AAA brands and celebrities, because we want to encourage them to create these amazing experiences where a lot of people come online and use the blockchain. So that's extremely important to us and something that we're really focused on. But that being said, there are significant challenges that exist, as I've outlined. So I just want to say thanks so much for inviting me to this conference. I will be at the end of this month at a conference called Nifty Conference in Hong Kong, speaking more about this. And then the week after, I will be speaking at China Joy in Shanghai. So if you're located in Asia, please come by and say hi. I will be talking more in depth about these certain subjects. And you can always tweet at me or send me a message if you have any further questions.
Great, thank you so much. It was great. Maybe you could turn down your speaker volume a little bit there so there's no echo. Thank you for that great presentation, Benny. We learned a lot. Very cool to see the whole evolution of the kittyverse and how you can actually repurpose kitties within a larger ecosystem and actually modify them and build on top of them. That gives a lot more kind of breadth and long-term sustainability to the model that you're creating. So very cool to hear that.
Yeah.
So let's take a few audience questions here. We're a little bit short on time, but we'll try to get a few of them in here. So what is the kittyverse and how can we develop for it? You partially answered that already. Anything on how do we develop for it? Where do developers go to build on the kittyverse?
Yeah, so if you go to the main site, cryptokitties.co, there is a kittyverse link, or you could just go /kittyverse. All the information is there. If you're a third-party developer and you want to build a CryptoKitties kind of game, that's amazing. So the information is all there. The Nifty license is there as well, so you can take a look at that.
Great. Next question. How many people were needed to develop CryptoKitties?
So that's interesting. It kind of started off with about 5 to 6 people. And we did some alpha testing, but essentially one thing to note is that the reason why I said, building a blockchain game is complicated, but, for us, we had a smart contract developer to kind of start off with the team and build all the contracts that we have for the game. But as the game progresses now, we don't really need to build more smart contracts. And actually, once you build these smart contracts, you're not supposed to really touch it. And if you take it off, we would have to issue out 820,000 kitties again, and it really just messes up with everything. So, now our team has grown significantly. We're about 40-ish people now.
That's huge. Yeah. All right, next question. Why did the transaction cross the chain? Well, the answer to that is obvious. It's to get to the other block. All right, that's bad. Let me ask you a few questions that I had here, which was, so when CryptoKitties launched, you guys were eating up 11% to 20% of the Ethereum volume at the time, and it was a huge scalability challenge. How did you guys wrestle with that, and how did you coordinate with the Ethereum team, and what was the behind-the-scenes stuff happening there, and how did you solve for those scalability issues? So,
our team is quite experienced. Our parent company is called Axiom Zen. It's a venture studio, so we're like a startup company that builds startups. So we're quite well versed in fighting fires that happen with AWS or Google Cloud and whatever software that's out there for infrastructure. But nothing has prepared us for fires that happened in the early days of Cryptokitties. And not only are these fires expensive in terms of us booting up all of the servers in order to accommodate the demand, is that one thing that is more specific is how breeding works in Cryptokitties. So just like in Bitcoin, there's miners who have ASICs and they basically verify the transactions and they cost money to run with energy. In Cryptokitties, when you decide to give birth to a kitty, there are actually nodes or computers that are actually doing this computation and giving birth to these kitties. Now, the company or the computer that's giving birth to the kitties, they collect a fee. And so there's a breeding fee that is associated with giving birth to a kitty. So that went out of the window in terms of the early days, because with the fire, the imbalance of the economics meant that we were burning thousands and thousands of dollars every single hour. And so not only that, we had to upgrade all of our AWS servers. So it was insane. How did we solve it? Well, we couldn't solve it. We tried to call all the smartest people that we knew. Some of them worked really closely with Vitalik. And they said, hey, you know what? There's nothing we can do in the next 2 days. It's just gonna take you're gonna ride it out. And so that's kind of what we did. Ever since then, we've created a separate team. There's about 10 or 15 people, and they're focused on scaling. They've been talking to a lot of blockchains out there. They're looking at different solutions. So it's been a very serious endeavor for us ever since that fire that had happened.
Great, thank you, Benny. Next question from Victor. One of the concerns with a real economy within video games is the high possibility of money laundering, which is why companies keep their currencies inside their systems. Do you have an opinion on that? Could video games with Cryptokitties and cryptocurrencies and crypto collectibles actually be used for money laundering purposes?
Well, I was listening to a podcast quite recently, and they said that it's actually great for criminals to use cryptocurrencies, because with the fact of a public ledger, you could put together some information and trace where these transactions have come from. Now, there are interesting mechanisms being built that are covering this, and there's other blockchains that provide that security or privacy. But if I find out what your wallet address is, then I can kind of trace backwards. And you bought this kitty, and it came from somewhere else, and then you bought some cryptocurrency. And it's with anything. I mean, with the ability to buy a car or a house, in the real world, there's always people who use it for bad and people who use it for good. And you as a company could only kind of control so much and kind of state your position and try to monitor in a way where you provide security for the rest of the ecosystem.
Great, thank you, Benny. And then another question from me here. When you think about the future of your company and the products you're building going forward, obviously with Cryptokitties, there wasn't an incredible amount of actual real-time gaming involved with Cryptokitties, right? There's an offline breeding component, and it's an investment, and it's fun, but it's not quite the same as playing kind of like a real-time video game that has interactivity. So I was wondering, what you think about going forward for future products within your organization. Are you planning on adding additional game design elements from traditional gaming into crypto collectibles?
So that's a great question. I'm going to answer that one really quickly down there. Is a genetic algorithm to generate kitties procedurally? Yes, that is. And so with what we're doing now, what is the future plan? So we've just raised $12.6 million from lead investors of Union Square Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz, and then a bunch of angel investors that are quite prominent. And so we've kind of split the team into two. One is continually build Cryptokitties, build this ecosystem, invest into the kittyverse, help other third-party developers build these gaming experiences. But internally, we're also figuring out a way to make these games, make Cryptokitties into 3D or AR, right? There's so many interesting things you could do with them. The other portion of the team is really focused on the UX problem that I've outlined. Essentially, we've seen from the data that we're losing all of these users from all of these complicated transactions, and we're really focused on the moms and the dads, and how can we, build tools or build a platform or anything that will help ease the user experience and make it super smooth. And that will allow for other content creators, as I mentioned, like large gaming companies, to come on board and to really build something on the public blockchain rather than the private blockchain. So all in all, that's kind of been our focus right now, is kind of building Cryptokitties as a game, as a brand, launching it in Asia, like Japan and China. And then on the other side is, how can we solve this UX problem?
That's great. Thank you, Benny. If there's any other questions you're seeing there in the Ask the Question area at the bottom, feel free to address any one of those. We'll probably have time for maybe 2 more before we're out of time here. So just click on the bottom under the Ask a Question section and scroll down and see if there's anything that kind of pop out at you that you think are relevant for you to answer.
Okay, how Cryptokitties make the world better? This technology, so there's this concept. It's like this 6th wave of technologies that are going to be extremely disruptive. So with the invention of the silicon chip was the first one. The second one is the invention of the computer. The third one is the invention of the internet. The fourth one is the invention of the user experience of the internet. So the Facebooks, the Google, that allowed for millions and billions of people to use these services. The 5th one is AI machine learning. So all these new and upcoming tools that allow us to do more work, or to allow us to be more efficient or focus on things that are very, not repetitive. And then the 6th one's blockchain. So if you kind of look up that scale of all the technology that I've listed there, all of them have served an impact in terms of globalizing and connecting humans, or allowing us to have access to services. So what Cryptokitties represent is the first time ever that you can own a digital asset in the blockchain or in the digital space. And that opens up the door for a lot more conversations now that people are like thinking about digital assets and what does that mean. If you think about countries where people don't have enough capital, or maybe there are political problems of where you can't own a house or you can't own a car, you can't own a physical asset because there's some law or some restriction that applies. Well, the digital assets now can be owned by other people, right? It's amazing to see people in the marketplace buy, sell, breed cats. And you could be in South Africa, I could be in Canada, and people are now buying and interacting with digital assets. And so assets with currency, just like real life where we have fiat currency and we have cars and houses, this is the first opening of that gate, and it explores this topic in a very interesting way. And
thank you, Benny.
Accessible too, right? Like before we came on board, there's a very small amount of people who talk about the blockchain, right? You go tell your boyfriend or girlfriend about Bitcoin and their eyes glaze over. But with Cryptokitties, we onboarded so many people who were just new to blockchain and were very interested in it. So that's, onboarding 1 billion consumers is going to allow for this technology, the benefits of it, to kind of seep through.
Thank you, Benny. I think we're just about out of time here, Benny. So I want to really acknowledge you for being here today and for sharing your time with us. We learned a lot about Cryptokitties. We're excited about the Kittyverse and for where all this will go. I'm a former gamer myself, started a game studio, so I can appreciate what you're building here. And so thanks for leading the way and creating a whole new type of asset that uses the blockchain. It's really inspiring.
Well, thanks so much, Ed, for inviting me here. And yeah, I love I apologize if I couldn't answer all the questions there, but do reach out on Twitter at Benny Giang or on my email. Love to kind of answer those questions. So thanks so much for inviting me onto this conference.
Thank you, Benny. And guys, we'll be right back with Raphael Kuzman, the CTO of Trust Token, in just a second. So hang in there. It's going to be a great conversation. Thanks, Benny.
Thank you.